Hey everyone, welcome to another wonderful Tuesday morning. We're so glad to have you with us, whether you're here live with us or if you're watching the replay. We thank you for doing that. My name is Johnny Alexander, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Brandy Bro, Melissa Stroh, and Norma Poor. And Norma is going to introduce our special guest.
Good morning. Today is going to be a fun day, and hopefully you'll learn a lot. Today we're talking about hosting a home-based writers retreat. And our guest today is a friend of mine, Chaplain Heidi White, and she is part of my Word Weavers group and has hosted a couple of home-based retreats in her home, both locally and at the beach. And we've just met with God and had wonderful writing time. So let me jump into it and introduce you to Heidi. Her and her, I'm sorry, frog in the throat. Heidi is a chaplain, and she says, although my husband and I have done many ministry ventures, this is a new adventure for us. I've hosted some local writers and word weaver friends over the past 2 years. However, I actually got the concept to make it Synergy's New Direction when I attended the Blue Ridge Mountain Christians Writer Conference in May. So Heidi is also, her and her husband have a 3-part TV Christian show, and I'll include the link in the chat. So with that, Heidi, take it away.
Well, good morning, and thank you so very much for this opportunity to share with you what God has been doing with my husband and I, and this venture on hosting a home-based writing retreat. Norma brought you up to speed that I am a chaplain. I was ordained in 2015, and then the Lord sent me to school at UNC Charlotte to get a bachelor's of arts in religious studies. And then he had us do the 3-part Christian television series called Live in the Presence. And the link is there if you care to take a look at it. It is free, and it's got a workbook. It's part of my writing journey. It was that for sure. I wanted to introduce you to my family. This is our 40th anniversary celebration, and it was really a miracle for us all to get together. I don't know about you, if you have a blended family situation where the children are wanted by other family in other places, but I was really grateful that the Lord allowed us to have this 40th celebration together. The Lord had us establish Synergy Bible Fellowship in 2018. And the idea that the Lord had given me at that time was to connect people with and within the kingdom of God. Now, when I first started that, we were going to nursing homes and veteran centers and the like, and doing what we called sunshine visits of some form. We would bring in flowers or something to nibble on and spent time with the residents and prayed with them. And then COVID hit, and we weren't allowed to come in anymore. I have some medical conditions that were not conducive to taking the shot. So when I was not able to take the COVID shot, I wasn't allowed on the premises anymore. And so I asked the Lord, okay, do you want me to shut down Synergy? And he said, no, in about 3 years, I will take you on a new direction. And lo and behold, it's been about 3 years since that. And he had me going to the Blue Ridge conference, and he gave me a new direction. And that's what we're going to explore today. I want to acknowledge Norma and her friendship. She has been very instrumental in my writing journey. And I want to thank you, Writers Chat, for providing this platform for me to share, and that you provide a community for writers and their hearts and minds to connect. That is also why writing a home base or having a home base writing retreat is to provide community, because as we know, writing can be a lonely business. Well, the other part, before the 3-part show, the Lord had me sit down. I did not know anything about writing. And he said, sit down and I'm going to give you something. And that was back in the day when we were living in Florida, and my husband's computers at work printed on green and white striped paper. And 6 months later, I had a 3-act play called He Was, He Is, He Forever Will Be. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing. But every word that was put down, I felt was about the Lord's voice being recorded. And it was about the Lord, the 3 parts of the Lord. It had the prophets, it had the nativity scene, and it had a crucifixion and a resurrection in it, and it was produced at the St. Lucie Civic Center in 1990. Then we moved to North Carolina in Mooresville, and the Lord gave me a 2-act play called Hooey, and the 3 main characters are 3 owls sitting on a tree branch overlooking a camping site as a father and his children are camping and discussing the origins of the universe as they look at the stars and discuss creation versus evolution in that drama. And so that was my writing beginning. And the Lord 3 years ago told me to start writing again. That play had sat in my drawer for years, 30 plus years. And he said, I want you writing again. And I said, okay, then you're going to have to make it easy. And wouldn't you know, on Facebook, I got an ad for the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference. And the first time I attended was 3 years ago. And I'm already signed up for this year. And if you haven't, give them a call, because I'd love to see you there. I was blessed to be invited to be part of the prayer team through Sherry Lynn Bisbano. And the other key part of that experience is I was invited to attend Eva Marie's class. And I don't want to give that away. She has a new book out, The Third Path. That class was her test run of the material, and she did it several years after that. But in that class, she does pose a question, what is in your hand? And that's kind of what led to the home-based writers conference, is that question, because that was churning in my heart when I was at the Blue Ridge conference. As Norma said, I joined Hickory, the Newton Word Weavers, and I've been a member for a couple of years. Went to the Serious Writer Intensive at Andy Clapp's church in Hey Kyle and Bethany. And then I had the blessing to go to Write to Publish this year with Norma. And that is pretty much where my writing journey has taken me. When I was at Blue Ridge, I saw this flyer for Ridgecrest, and it said, impacting lives for God's glory through purposeful hospitality. And I literally in the room had an aha moment, like, oh, this could be a change to a home-based writing retreat, our White House hospitality for kingdom purposes. Now, we always tease that you come to the White House, but it's a brown brick. But that flyer gave that concept to me, and I started to pray about it. So what about hosting a home-based writing retreat? What's the process to make a retreat successful? Well, the most important thing is to pray and ask the classic questions, being the where, the what, the when, the how, the who, and the how much. So let's start with where. What is in your hand? So what's in your neighborhood? What's in your backyard? Is it a library? Do you live in an apartment? Is there a camping spot or a park? How about your local church? How about a hotel? Of course, we're talking about home and home base, or perhaps you have a vacation home. Well, when you consider what you have in your hand or what the Lord has given you to use, think about the space that you have, how many people you can host. Would you need to add a hotel room if you have a great response? Is there a hotel room close enough to your home or your apartment? And then for like if you wanted to meet at the library, if you didn't want the added responsibilities of hosting people in your home, you could do a day retreat type of style at a library. But I would caution you to read the agreement, because at least in my Catawba County, they will not allow religious events there. So the gathering could not be featured as a Christian writers group. It could be just a writers group, but that's not so bad. You could open it to the public and you can advertise that you're doing, I don't know, writing life stories, helping people write their life story, or writing a project like a cookbook for the neighborhood to help the fire department. Who knows? But you cannot charge, at least in my library, but you can network with anyone that you would invite in, and could, who knows, have a ministry right there that's writing and sharing the love of God outside of the library. If you do set up in the library, there are some rooms that have a small kitchenette, so you could bring food in, or you could go out to lunch. And you could decide how many days you would want to book that, one or several in a row. So if not a library, then you could choose an apartment. Many apartments have a clubhouse, and if you don't have that much room in your apartment, you could still use that side clubhouse, and people could come and go to that, and be a day writing retreat, and you could still have all the fellowship and fun at the apartment. Now, if you're more adventuresome than I, you could go camping. Not quite my style. Or you could meet at a park for the daytime. Around this area, there is Duke State Park. And if you are a camper, well, why not add that to the mix with your s'mores and writing by candle or firelight? And there are other campgrounds in the area too. You just have to do a Google search for that. So in writing a home-based writing retreat, another classic question is the where. And another where would be church. Perhaps your church would allow you to use their a classroom, and you could promote the writing experience within the church to benefit some church ministry, such as like the cookbook, or testimonies of how God has used your life to His glory, and via for sale in the church lobby for whatever donation, and that could benefit, who knows, the homeless outreach. You could bring food in, or you could go out to restaurants, and you could go home and then return the next day to the classroom. You could build this around a worshiping together, either on Sunday or a midweek, and it could be a home-based, church-based writers retreat. Again, a hotel has amenities. If someone stays there, you've got a free breakfast. It would be a vacation for some who are going to stay at the hotel in their own hometown, and as many people could attend as wanted, or others in your hometown could come and go again to the hotel meeting room, and you could again bring in food, or you could go out to lunch as part of your experience. The Holiday Express has online just the sizes of rooms and where you can meet. And we have a charming little inn here at Lake Norman that is only $100 a night, that you could do the same. So another where, it's where at home. What is in your backyard? What is in your front yard? Do you have a picnic table in your own yard that you could use if you feel restricted within, and do a daytime retreat and come and have people come and go for that? Or do you have a vacation home? Maybe you see someone familiar there and recognize the Exploring the Art of Character of one of our favorite authors from Blue Ridge, Miss Mills. Well, if you go on a vacation on the beach, you cannot have any crabby attitudes. You have to be nice to your writing companions. And if you do get to go on the beach, it is a vacation and a writing and a fellowship with your writing friends that you'll never forget. John and I have this opportunity that we're going to be able to, on this property here, where you see this 300-year-old white oak tree, we're going to be able to develop this. And we project that in the fall of 2024, we'll have that available for a Synergy Bible Fellowship Writing Retreat. And there will be 4 bedrooms with overflow for air mattress and that type of thing. So we're looking forward to that possibility. But when the Lord gave us this property to improve, he gave us the Isaiah 61:3 verse to provide those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. And they shall be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. We genuinely pray that as people write for the Lord, that they can display the glory of his splendor in their testimonies. So you need to prepare an itinerary when you're having a home-based writing retreat. It's one of the tasks that you'll have to sit down and prayerfully consider. So what are you going to do? Will you have a theme? Will it be based on a passage of scripture, such as Psalm 23 or the Lord's Prayer? This fall, in the home that we have in Terrell, Synergy Bible Fellowship will be hosting the Hero's Journey. The Hero's Journey came to me as an idea to follow through on, because when I attended Blue Ridge this last year, Brian Bird, who is the author of 100 of the Touched by an Angel episodes, and he's also involved with the producing and writing of Where It Calls the Heart, was conducting a class on the Hero's Journey. And he strongly recommended this book, The Writer's Journey, and it's by Christopher Vogler. And I am reading it and folding that into the notes that Mr. Bird gave us during class, and we will be going over that in addition to allowing people to work on their own projects. But the Hero's Journey takes your main character, or actually every character, and they have 12 different steps usually through the story arc, and they're parallel to a person's life and the challenges we face and the victories that we achieve through walking it through with God. So I hope that you'll pray for me on that, and that you may consider wanting to attend that home-based retreat in my home. You want to decide whether or not people are going to work on their individual projects primarily, or work on a mutual project that may benefit your church or a community. You need to include on your itinerary a prayer and devotion time, eating times, writing times, and optional activities like walking, watching a movie, playing a board game, so that there's a balance of writing and fellowship. This is an example of one of the itineraries that we did for our home based here in Terrell. We had the event arriving anytime after 4 o'clock, and we had a crock pot of chili, and we had a deli tray and salad, and I'll get to that in more detail later. But then we had the devotion with dinner, and we had fellowship, and then we had alone time, or people could choose to fellowship through the night. And then we did that repeat Saturday, and we called that retreat over Sunday at 8 o'clock so that people could have that extra night on a retreat experience, but get to church on time and join their family. So that's why we structured it that way. So what are you going to need? Well, I strongly recommend that you look into a hold harmless agreement. There are free forms online, and this picture is an example of one that my husband, who is a businessman, took from online and adapted to our address. Sorry to say, but your friends do love you, but not everyone you are inviting may love you as dearly as your closest friends. So this is just to safeguard you and your family from anyone's fall. Of course, you have insurance and the things in place if you're going to open your home to the public in this fashion anyway. But this hold harmless agreement is just a line of defense in case there's any questions in the future. It's just better to have it done in the front end. And we even do it when we have our church groups over. The youth group had to sign, all the parents had to sign a waiver for all of their kids to be on our property, because we're just being good stewards of what God has entrusted us with, as I know you want to be as well. You want to make sure that you have a healthy house. And then if somebody you know is coming has an allergy that like to cats, you may want to warn them that you have a cat or something of that nature, so that they can make the decisions to attend right up front. And of course, when you're hosting the event, you're going to need to restrict your pets in some form. My husband chooses to just take them and go someplace else. Bless his heart. I appreciate him for that. So when do you want to host a home-based writing retreat? Well, think about the time of year. Synergy Bible Fellowship is going to host 3 times a year. The winter at the end of January or mid-March, summer probably mid-July, and again, our November one this year, the Hero's Journey, it will be November 17th through the 19th. So I suggest that you send out invitations or start talking it up 60 days in advance. And make sure that the time that you choose is not during other key writing events. That would really cause some conflict there. Again, the hours starting on a Friday night after people get off work, and you could go to Sunday morning if you want to, or you could call it at the end of a Saturday if that is more comfortable for everybody's schedule. And again, those that can come and go who live in your home base town can choose to go to their own home at night and come back and join the fellowship and the writing experiences if they so choose. So how do you go about this? I recommend that you delegate the tasks. Ask somebody to bring in a crock pot of their favorite dish. We did chili and soup. We got a deli tray of meats and cheeses from BJ's, which was only $40. And the beauty of that is we took the ham off of that and saved it for the morning breakfast with the bagels and cream cheese and the scrambled eggs. And that was a full breakfast. But the turkey and cheeses and roast beef with sandwich bread and chips was all we needed to get through the entire weekend with that BJ's tray, with the addition of a crock pot meal. You want to be sensitive to people's dietary needs and possibly assign those that, like I am gluten-free. I have many gluten-free recipes that are tried and true. So I would probably be a good choice to ask to bring a gluten-free dish because those, it's taken many years to find what tastes good and what's just kind of iffy on a gluten-free diet. So ask those that have special needs to bring what they like and to accommodate those special needs. And of course, anybody can bring anything that they want that just livens the menu. Then you want to also delegate cleanup. Preparing your home for a home-based writing retreat, of course, is going to take some effort on your part several days, if not a week before, getting everything hotel ready, if you will, for your guests so they're comfortable, and making sure that they have a writing station in each part of your home or apartment, or if you're going to meet in the conference room, that there is some place that they can get away to do their personal writing. But when the conference is all over and you're left with piles of laundry and lots of miscellaneous cleanup, it's good to have a cleanup buddy or to make assignments depending upon your where you are. And that, many hands make light work. And just that little help of stripping the bed is a significant time saver when your guests do that for you. So who should you invite? Well, my question is who has God asked you to invite? Who do you know in your church, your town, other writing conference networks, and other teams or hobby groups? I've got some friends that aren't really writers, but they're interested in writers. I have a friend I met through Crisis Response International, and I met her at a gun training. But she says, I've always wanted to write my testimony and what God's done for me. I said, well, join one of our writing retreats. And she did. So you don't have to be just a writer to write if you are building the community of fellowship. But then again, if you want to keep it focused on serious writers or academic writers or career writers, you can go in those circles of people and pull from that for your guest list. Now, how much is this going to cost? Well, you're going to have the cost of food, your wash and cleanup, printing, any guest fee, and I'll come back to that, on any other incidentals. My husband noticed about a $50 jump in water use for the month where I hosted a home base writing retreat. Now that was a lot because I had laundry before, laundry after, dishes during, and cleanup. So we have calculated that into the next retreat ask price. The other thing that we did was when we had a home-based retreat, we hosted the She Speaks conference online, and there was a fee of $250. Lisa Turkhurst and her ministry there, Proverbs 31 offers a She Speaks conference. So we brought that in via internet, and we split the cost of that among everyone who attended. So it's going to be very personalized how much it's going to cost. And maybe you could have some people who can't attend but can offer scholarships for that, for the members that they want to see join your group at your home base. So there's an example of our conference that we brought on the internet when we were doing our home base conference in Myrtle Beach. So what advice would I give to anyone that wants to do a home-based writing conference or retreat? Of course, ask God what he wants for you, for the event, for the people there. And be very open to the ministry moments versus the schedule. If God moves and everyone has what they need, which is his inspiration, to go with them back home to their normal schedule, then you've a mission accomplished. You've provided a space where they can get in touch with what is on their hearts to write. Some people will need to just take a nap and sleep to recover from what they're coming from, the chaos in their home. And once they get that nap, they're going to be ready to write. And others may need to talk it out with you as to what they're going through, because that is what they're writing about. And they need you to be a mirror or a sympathetic ear to help them get to those golden nuggets within their soul. Now, all of these things will benefit them because, again, we are scribing God's words through us to his glory. My final recommendation on what I would advise is please have fun. Just enjoy the whole experience. And allow time for your guests to find a quiet place to write and be alone with God. And you're going to have some sweet fellowship. Savor it. And then we know your why. For me, it's connecting people with and within the kingdom of God. And with that, I would like to say this prayer for you. Lord, please bless everyone who is watching this video and this show. And I ask you to help them discover what is in their hand that you've given them to be used by them for your glory. And I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, Heidi, thank you so very, very much for that presentation. We didn't have a lot of questions, but we had some great comments in the chat. So I'm going to just sort of let you address some of those. Power strips and writing stations with plenty of electrical outlets to charge things.
Right. That's a good point. I have had to supply little writing tables. I even have a sewing table I put in one room because it's a flat surface big enough for a laptop. You do need to get power strips and extension cords from wherever you're going to have people plug in. That's true.
Yeah. Brandy was the one that brought that up, and I live in kind of an older home too, and she was talking about the 3-prong things that won't fit into, of course, the 2-prong outlets, and I've had to buy adapters so that I can do that here in my little garage suite, as I call it. And then people were talking about disability accessibility. So do you have some comments on that?
I do. When we designed the home that we're in Terrell, we put in a ramp. So we're accessible. That is something you're going to have to consider if you can't rent or have a handy carpenter give you a ramp up your front door in some way. You may want to consider one of the other venues that are already compliant.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
And we did have some people talk about other needs for things like CPAP machines and people that might have difficulties with certain types of lighting. You know, for me, one of the things that I struggle with when I go to a place is often people have heaters or air conditioners that are mildewy, and I get asthma from them.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are things like that that you don't really think about. And then you walk into a building that's like, oh no, I'm in trouble.
I hear you. I'm one of those. Mm-hmm.
We do have a question Leslie posed. She says, if you don't have any connections, how do you get the word out?
Okay. Well, if you have a Facebook account, a Twitter account, and you have a following, that's where I'd start. You already have some kind of community in those two places. If you attend church, what Bible study, what life group are you attending? Just share the word there. People might say, oh, I have never thought about writing, but you can say, it's okay, just journal what God gives you. And now they're writing.
I think that's an excellent thought. And I appreciated that when you were saying it earlier in your presentation too, because we so often, when we talk writing, we're talking about professional writing. You know, we're writing articles, we're writing to sell, we're writing novels, we're writing short stories, whatever, in hopes to sell. But there are a lot of people that just want to tell, they just want to write their stories, and they're not interested in the whole publishing journey and all of that. And it just seems like a retreat like this would be a great place for, you know, people just to even just kind of dip their toes into the writing world, you know, and maybe they'll decide, yeah, you know, I really do want to do this and go forward with it. Or maybe it'll just be, like you just now said, a time to kind of sit back and have that time with God that maybe you're not getting when you're so busy with life and journaling and drawing, or, you know, just whatever kind of thing you would want to do, that it would just be a quiet, restful time.
Right.
I'd like to add that the excuse me, the very first retreat we did at Heidi's was you know, the first one's almost always extra special unless, you know, it just goes sideways, but ours did not. And it was just really sweet. And I love that we didn't plan it more like a conference where every couple hours there's this, but we left lots of open time for the guests to just get alone with God. Or there was a few times where a couple of the writers would just team up and talk and pray with each other and just minister to each other. And not like the very first retreat I went to at Heidi's. I honestly didn't get a whole lot of writing done, but I was able to pray and talk with and serve the ladies that were there. You know, because we all have busy lives. We all step away from sometimes the chaos of home and just need a listening ear and someone who will pray for us. And Heidi made that available by the way she structured the schedule. So you always want to be flexible and allow room for the Holy Spirit to work, as Heidi's already mentioned. And it just has created a deeper friendship in our Word Weavers group, because we've spent more than just those couple hours once a month together. So, you know, don't prejudge. Don't, oh, well, I don't want to do this because nobody would come, or I don't want to do this because what if? Don't let the enemy plague you with that. If God's put it on your heart to do a home-based retreat, just take the next step and see what God does. He'll open the doors and he'll show you the way. Just keep taking that next step in the process, and you will just be blessed beyond measure, whether you're the host or you're the attendee. And just it was a great experience. We've really enjoyed it, and Heidi is always just the hostess with the mostest.
Thank you, Norm, if I may suggest that as a baby step, so to speak, if you're considering this, start small. if you want to just invite 1 or 2 people to get the kinks worked out of it and figure out, oh, I do need to get more extension cords. Oh, I do need another pop-up table. I didn't think about that. The kitchen table's already consumed with the food, and where are my people going to write? Just invite and just make it a one-day experience so that you're getting that aha moments and can work through it.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Anybody have any comments or suggestions? Y'all are free to come back on screen.
Yeah, please.
And
Leslie has a question. She says, if you're doing a retreat in a hotel and cater in, how do you figure out how much to charge participants? We have a campground retreat about an hour away that will do food, but the cost can be $200 or more per participant. I would want to have it accessible to those who struggle financially too. What do you think?
Well, it's going to depend upon your individual provider, what their plan is and what they will let you do. If they'll let you bring food in, okay, and you're okay with that, do the potluck style, for goodness sake. If you have to go with the institution's provided meals, that's just going to be part of the cost. And you may want to plan out in the future and ask, if people can't come, maybe they can sponsor or scholarship somebody to come to the event. It's like any other endeavor. I mean, they may have health codes that you can't bring food in, but they may also be totally okay with you bringing your chicken and chips. So it's really a very individualized, very specific to where you're hosting kind of question.
And do you put a
there,
on yours at your house? I mean, you'd have a cap on how many could attend, and then, or do you allow other people to come too, because not everyone's going to spend the night? I mean, how do you just work that out?
One of our retreats was almost all the beds that were available were taken.
Mm-hmm.
I also have sofas, and I was willing to put up air mattresses or cots. People could bring their own comfort and items, and some brought their own pillows. That it's kind of a home camping environment when you do that. And there were some that had responsibilities they had to get back to, so they would stay as long as they could, and then they would go take care of what was going on at home and come back the next morning and join us for breakfast. Having a home base like that allows that staycation kind of experience, and allows those that can participate to the extent that they have room in their schedule to do it and still be a part of it. And of course, you're going to follow up with another retreat, or you're going to follow up with a Zoom meeting, or you're going to follow up with some kind of connection once you get the ball rolling on these relationships.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, feel free to come back on if you'd like to. Ben said that he had just recently had to cancel a writer's retreat, and I just appreciate his advice here. Realize sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, and life isn't measured by successes versus failures. And that is so, so true. Sometimes things just don't work out the way we would like for them to. Hey, Ben, good to have you with us today. Brandy, buildings have an occupancy limit. Yeah, so you would need to know that too. All right. Anyone have a question or a comment? An experience they would like to share?
Johnny, I'll just share that if you schedule a special speaker, one of the reasons I had to cancel is that speaker had a serious health issue.
Oh.
And had to schedule. So a backup plan might be best to, have somebody to possibly fill in, and you don't have to cancel an event. And so having it planned well beyond what it's hard to plan for Murphy's Law,
Yes, it is. It is.
So having a backup plan is good, whether it be the venue or the speaker.
Really great.
on that idea is that if you do some homework on YouTube or wherever it is okay to rebroadcast, so to speak, and you have them in your back pocket to pull out if necessary. And then, of course, again, you can do something on paper instead. Let's have a challenge, a writing challenge. Who can write how many words in a short, do games if you need to do fillers or whatever. Just having everybody together for that fellowship. And if it's focused on building some kind of skill in some way, either through YouTube, or you might have a DVD, or you might have a friend's book that you can read out of, you can pitch hit almost anything that goes awry, you can fill in the blank with something writing style.
That's a great idea. We even try to do that here at Writers Chat, which I don't think we've had to do it very often, but you just never know. If someone's not, last minute, someone's not going to be able to come for whatever reason. It wasn't our fault, but it just happens. And so we have one or two little ideas just in case.
I've noticed in the chat, Brandy brought up the topic, and other people have, they've been to some retreats that were over $400. And that's the beauty of a home-based retreat, is if you can keep it at a church, a library, or your home, that cuts the cost down tremendously. If you have to do a hotel and cater and food and all of that, that's where your cost goes up. But if you're on a budget, if you know that those that you want to invite don't have an extra $400 laying around for just a day and a half or 2 days, then consider, like Heidi mentioned, just do it. Everybody gets together all day long, and then you go home at night and sleep in your own comfy bed, and just have people bring food, potluck. Or take a break for lunch, and whoever wants to go out and get a McDonald's or go sit down, whatever. There's lots and lots of flexibility, just like we have to do in writing. Know your audience. Know where they are a little bit financially, and what's gonna, you don't have to ask, okay, tell me, how much do you make a year, and how much do you no, obviously you don't have to do that, but just kind of know them and get a feel for where they are. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It really doesn't. And honestly, as we have learned doing Heidi's, most often the simpler, the better.
Right.
And that helps people to feel calm and relaxed, that there's not all these things, so many things happening that they're anxious, or they're like, oh my gosh, what if I don't do something right? And you know how we are, we're an anxious people. That's why God says so many times throughout the Bible, don't fear, stop being anxious. In fact, this Isaiah 41:10 has been popping up on social media a lot lately, and that's my favorite go-to verse. But I like an older version from 1995 that says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am the Lord your God. Mm-hmm. And boy, don't we anxiously look about us sometimes. Even in the middle of good stuff, we still get a little anxious. So relax. And, if this is something God's put on your heart to do, like Heidi already said, just start with baby steps. Plan a 1 day, or just Facebook loves to do questions and stuff, right? So do a little questionnaire and send it out. And you'd be surprised, what might happen. And if it's only 1 or 2 people that come, don't look at that as a failure, but look at that as your first step.
God's mercy.
Yes.
And
that you're not making mistakes in front of a whole host of people.
Right.
But I know when God calls us to do something, we're often afraid. But just remember, God in the Bible, it talks about he who's faithful in little will also be faithful in much. So don't be embarrassed or shy about humble beginnings, because just look at all the people in the Bible who God used. Few of them were of magnanimous anything. There were a few that were, but they had the right kind of heart. So just go with it.
Norma, can I share a testimony?
Yeah. And then after that, we'll get to Catherine. She
Oh,
has her
I'm
hand
sorry.
up. No, you go ahead.
There was a time when my husband and I were in business. You have ups and downs, and we were in a downturn, and it was severe. And I did not have anything, any income. I was dealing with health issues and could not work, and I did not have anything to give as a tithe or offering, or have anything to express a ministry through, except for my Shasta daisies. And I'm sharing this story because what you dedicate to God, He turns over into blessings that overrun you. What He had me do is take Coke bottles and cut them in half and put holes in the bottom, and divide these Shasta daisies into individual plants, and then put some paper around the bottom and start giving them away to those that needed encouragement. And what I found God did with that gesture, the widow's mite, what is in your hand is the concept here. What has God given you that you can put back in His hand so that He can multiply it back unto you? I ended up with so many flowers in my garden, because what kinds of seed do you use is the kind of seed you're going crop you're going to receive back. But if you're doing it with the right heart, like the widow's mite, He will open avenues that, who knows, a grocery store might say, have a run on what you need for your event. Or you may walk into somebody pumping gas, and they'll say, hey, I've been looking to write. Do you know where I could write? You never know what God's going to do when you put your desires in His hands with whatever He has in your hand to give back to Him. So I encourage you, start wherever you're at. And from that small little daisy giveaway, the Lord has Synergy Bible Fellowship now doing these home-based retreats, amongst other things. So go with God.
I had two comments and a question. The first one is about food, because I help with a lot of conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do choose to do it at like a hotel or something, almost all of them require you to use their catering services, and those are not cheap. But as far as what it's going to cost you otherwise, there's going to be a flat fee for most outside caterers. So each person, their meal is going to be, $15 to $20 for a lunch, depending on where you're located. Just something to keep in mind. But the good thing about that is it's convenient. It is usually they'll deliver it to you, and you can have them do it individually as opposed to buffet. So the whole COVID thing,
Right.
We had to change a lot of the ways we did our conferences. The second thing is to remember that whoever's supposed to be there is going to be there.
Right.
If you're doing this, just like you said, Heidi, with a God heart, then the people that need to be there will be there. And even if it's just you, there's a reason.
Uh-huh.
My question to Heidi is,
Yes, ma'am.
as a income curious individual, do you do these conferences with an aim to make a profit? Do you build in a profit into your price point, or do you do it completely as a service?
At this point, it's completely as a service. We do hope to break even. We've been working out the numbers to at least break even. But more than not, it is a service, and it's unto the Lord, and He takes care of the rest. He brings it back in some other avenue.
I would like to add to that there are grants available across the country, particularly with arts councils and other things like that. And you can find some with Hope Clark's Funds for Writers. But there are many grants out there that will fund projects, retreats, and things that are designed for a specific purpose. You just need to find one, read the guidelines really well, and then write to the guidelines to ask for funding. And you'd be surprised if you write the grant application well to the letter of what they ask for, you may very well find funding for the retreat. It's a good way to help fund the retreat.
Good point.
You know, Brandy, along that same lines, when I was doing the retreat, there's a place called Eventbrite, Brite. And if you have a small group, and this would work well with home workshops, if you have 25 or less, there's absolutely no cost to publicize that through Eventbrite.
Excellent. Thanks.
Anybody else? A question or a comment or an experience?
I noticed somebody posted early on, what is synergy? And Heidi might need to explain that.
Synergy is my doing business as name, as Chaplain Heidi White. It's just that layer of protection that I am identified with the state as I'm conducting business as Synergy Bible Fellowship, Chaplain Heidi White. That's really the primary. And again, I was doing home nursing home visits and that type of thing as a chaplain with that as my front gate. And then the Lord changed it up now. So,
Okay. Isabel, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Yes, greetings. So I'm French, so in France, some situations might be a bit different. But two things with the Eventbrite, it brings to mind that maybe it could also be hosted by Zoom. So that's another way, totally different. But that was not my question. It's just the Eventbrite that brought that. It was about teenagers or very young adults. Because as I go to book fairs to sell my books, often a mom would buy a book and say, "But you know, my 15-year-old daughter, she would love to be a writer." And this happened often, and even in the church. So then that would maybe have to be hosted in, I don't know, in the church or with the youth group. So just whatever comes to you about that subject. Thank you.
That's a good point. Isabel, is just consider those that God puts before you, right? And that may lead to where you want to host. And one of the things I enjoyed about Heidi's, the first retreat she did at her home, was it was finally when things were really starting to open up after the great shutdown. And it was wonderful to actually be in person and hug people and get to sit more than 25 feet away from each other and, you know, all of that. It was really great. And we were considerate of those who were still cautious and fearful about that. And you always want to do that. You don't ever want somebody to feel unwelcome if they're not as huggy touchy and all of that as you are. So, but Heidi, this has been great information, fabulous discussion going on in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions? I see it's about time. Brandy, go ahead.
Yeah, I got to thinking a little bit about home insurance. If you have something in your home, what does home insurance have to say about having a group of people in the home, and will they cover something like that? Or if somebody gets injured on your property, that raises an issue. How do you handle the insurance piece of maybe a home-based retreat?
You're going to have to know your own policy and what they are. Call your agent or look over your contract. Generally, if this is a private event, or that's why we suggest the home held harmless form. That goes a long way to making any insurance company happy that that the attendees are agreeing not to sue you for anything that may happen, such as a trip or fall. Having that document is just wise in today's world. And you do, if somebody does trip and fall, of course, you're going to call 911 and do all of those first aid procedures, which I would also recommend you brush up on and maybe even get CPR training online through the Red Cross if you're going to do this, or have someone in your group that is willing to do that type of thing. There are those considerations. And, first off, you do walk in faith. If God called you to this, then he's got his grace for you. But just like with Joseph, putting together the silos to hold the wheat, you want to do diligence so that the devil doesn't have an opportunity to take advantage of you.
Someone mentioned earlier,
we did mention,
sort of forgot about this, but someone mentioned having like a little paper or something with emergency numbers or the closest urgent care, or those kinds of things, and restaurants too, like places to go to eat. So that could be a nice little thing to include in a welcome packet. I'm sorry, Brandy, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, actually, on the recording, it's a good idea also to maybe call your fire department and check what the occupancy limit would be for your particular building and square footage.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not thinking, I don't think a home-based writing retreat is going to see more than 15 people, 20 on the outside, maybe 30 if 10 of them are coming and going and back to their own homes. But as far as, having an event, you're going to have to deal with the limitations of your facility. And then again, with it's a hotel or a library or something like that. Whatever.
Yes, like how many bathrooms you have.
That's a consideration. That's a consideration.
And if maybe you should get an outhouse if you need one.
Well, that camping idea looks good for that, doesn't it? The one thing that we did announce at one of the retreats is that the water heater capacity is only good for 2 showers and a dishwashing. So anyone after 2 showers and a dishwasher is going to need to wait 15-20 minutes for that to reheat. So just some of those little personal quirks that you may want to communicate about your own home.
I'll tell you guys this little very quickly, and then we need to wrap up. When Bethany Jett and Kyle Young, who many of you know, I'm saying their name more for the recording and those who might be watching the replay, first started their first serious writer retreat in Ohio, Macon, Ohio, a little church there, who was so gracious to have us. And the big lesson learned was toilet paper.
Yes.
And then also turning one of the men's restrooms into a ladies' restroom. I mean, that was like the big, big, big takeaway from that 2-day conference. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, again, Heidi, thank you so much. This is really wonderful. I hope it inspires some of us at least to, again, doesn't have to be big. I'm thinking even just like 3 people at a restaurant, and see if we can get all day, and just be together, or a hotel lobby, maybe, I don't know. Okay. I looked at the schedule for next week to see what we were doing, but then I also know there was like chat and emails going on. And so I am not really for sure what was decided.
Come and be surprised.
I guess you'll just have to tune in to Writers Chat Members Facebook page and find out. If you join, then you'll get the invite for whatever we decide to do.
It will be an open panel discussion, so plan to come have fun.
Or maybe we might move the Come Write With Us back to that space because it was originally there. So who knows? But it will be fun, and it's always enjoyable to come and gather together with Writer Chat members on Tuesdays. So anything that we decide to do is going to be great.
Come, be sure to, if you want to be in your pajamas, that's fine, but you are invited to be on throughout the whole time next week. So there you go. All right. Well, with that, Heidi, thank you again. Thanks everybody for being here. I invite you to stay for the after party. If you're watching the replay, please, that you're invited to join us any Tuesday morning. We're here at at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, and go around the globe to find your time zone. Our recordings are on our Writers Chat Facebook members group and page. So you can find them on Facebook and also find them on YouTube. It's a Serious Writer channel. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.